had the vehicle, joyriding, and they went after a rival gang member who was riding a dirt bike, and they were shooting at him from the Tesla Model Y. Um, they ended up hitting him and sending him to the hospital. To my knowledge, he survived. But what they didn't realize was they were in the smartest vehicle that's on the road, and
Right.
all of that information is tracked.
Welcome back to Turn Down for What, your source for EV news and updates. Like and subscribe for more content like this episode. Let's dive on in. Welcome back to Turn Down for What. Another day, another episode. Today we are continuing our conversation from last week, and we have the wonderful privilege of having Ethan on the line. Welcome to the call, Ethan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So,
Yeah.
Ethan,
Oh,
introduce
go ahead.
yourself. Give us a little bit about yourself, and I'll let kind of Chris tee us off into the episode.
Yeah, so a Turo power host. That means I've done this for quite some time. I've met the metrics to achieve that that recognition. So I host a fleet of Teslas on Turo. I've been doing it since January of 2021. Started with one Tesla 2020 Model 3 Standard Range Plus, which is no longer a thing. And we've amassed a fleet of about 10 Teslas. Our most recent addition was a Tesla Cybertruck, which is doing great. But amongst me and my business partner, we have every model with the exception of the original Roadster. And we have a little over 1,400 trips. So yeah.
That's amazing, man. One of the things I love to do is see the way that EVs are used, in the way that ICE vehicles are used. And so, last week we talked with Mac and with Talik about how they use theirs for Uber and Lyft, and just how different that is, and the cost savings with electricity, especially if you can charge from home. And now to see what you're doing with Turo using all electric. I just love to dig into that. I mean, I've seen your posts forever. The stories are incredible. I mean, it's the wham bam Tesla cam of car rental, man. The stuff that you have is just phenomenal stuff. So, tell us about how it's structured. And you talked about how many vehicles are they exclusively Tesla, and is that I'd love to hear like why just Tesla. I mean, obviously Tesla for obvious reasons, cost wise and desirability and all of that. Are you opposed to others, or is it just financially not make sense? I mean, there's so many questions to get into. Kind of walk us through just how you think that out, and do you charge all at a central location to help your costs? And it looks like
Just
Josh has got a question.
just to insert before we start the conversation, Turo, if you're not aware, because I've never personally used Turo, but I know of Turo. Turo is
Yeah,
a
yeah, I can explain
service.
it if you want.
Yeah, explain Turo
Yeah,
to us
yeah,
because
yeah.
the listener may not even know what Turo is. It's a segue from our rideshare conversation, but it's not ride sharing. Tell us what
Right.
Turo is, and then you can dive into your fleet and how you have it set up.
Yeah, so Turo, spelled Turo, is what's called a peer-to-peer car sharing platform. So the company Turo provides a an app and a website that allows you, in whatever location you happen to be in, to go on that application, search available vehicles in the area, and then you can book sometimes instantly the vehicle of your choice. Now, this is what I would say rivals the traditional rental car market. Rental car companies like Hertz, which recently, there's been a lot of discussion about the Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys that they purchased and have sold off, I think, a quarter of their fleet. But it's a rival to those companies, Enterprise, Dollar, any of those. But what's great about Turo that you won't find on Hertz or any other company that offers Teslas is it's one, your customer service. You're talking directly to an owner. For in most cases, some situations there's a big business that has a fleet. In our situation, it's very personal. If somebody books a car, they talk directly to me or a group of people that are part of my team that have a lot of experience with Teslas. So that's one of the benefits. The second is that when you go to Hertz, you're booking typically a standard range Model 3 or what we call now a rear wheel drive Model 3. Sometimes there's a long range thrown in there. But if you want something that's a little bit more, has a little bit more power, a little bit more luxurious, you come to us and you can get a Model X Plaid for sometimes a very, a similar price to what you'll be paying. I would say for something comparable with Hertz, but they don't have anything comparable to that. Or a Cybertruck. If you want to experience a Cybertruck, you can't go to a Tesla dealership and take one for a test drive, but you can book it through Turo. So
that's kind of ideal. So if you had, go ahead, Josh.
I would say for a gas driver that wants to get an introduction into the space, you could, in essence, lease, like a car rental, a EV, give it a week or two of a drive and experience what a Cybertruck or a Model Y or a Ford Lightning or whatever would be like to drive. That way you could kind of see what the space feels like, as an EV owner.
Yeah, exactly. And you're also paired with someone that can provide you a lot of information. That's one of the, like I said, that's one of the benefits is they can talk directly to me. I've owned 14 different Teslas. And I can speak to basically everything about ownership. So that's one of the benefits if you book from a host that is willing to provide that level of customer service. Now, to answer some of you, I think you had a few other questions tied in there with the fleet, but how things got started is probably where we should begin. I had a mentor when I lived out in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, who had a fleet of Teslas, maybe 4 to 5. His company was called We Drive Tesla. He's still active out there, and he is within the last couple of years started a company called Honolulu Exotics. So if you ever go out there, they're the people to check out. But anyways, his business had just kicked off when we met, and I sat down with him and he explained what Turo was and how that worked. A few years later, I reached back out, got some more guidance, and decided to start my own fleet. So I originally had a reservation on a Model 3 in 2015. Whenever that reservation came up, I couldn't really afford that with my pay at the time, so I decided to defer. But when I got my first Model 3, the plan was, let's put this on Turo and give people that experience. The reason why we only do Teslas is because of the customer experience. You don't have the ability to do certain things in other vehicles that you have in Teslas. Specifically, phone key, that process is so seamless, and it makes it a lot easier on the host. For other EVs, they don't have the ability. They don't have the Tesla supercharging network. That's a recent thing where other companies are starting to get it. But it would be absolutely miserable to try to operate this thing with a fleet of like Leafs, because the user experience would be terrible, and then as a host, it wouldn't work well. So
it is incredible. It is incredible to watch you sometimes post about like this is how fast they're going. They got their windows down. They've got all of this visibility that, as far as I know, maybe you can educate me if Rivian and Lucid, because they're the only other kind of really top spec software groups. Do any of them have that type of visibility, or is it only Tesla that really lets you see like almost every aspect of what's going on in the vehicle, which is amazing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I can speak to that. I haven't owned a Rivian. I've rented one from Turo before from that friend that has the Marina, nor have I driven a Lucid. But we only will look at what's going on if there's something that triggers that. And that means, hey, the vehicle just exceeded 100 miles an hour. We got an alert. Okay, let's see what's going on with that vehicle. Who knows what's happening? We've had a lot of interesting situations that we've had to get involved in. So why not be proactive versus reactive, and try to figure out what's going on? The other thing would be we get alerts for like if the charge is at 10%, or lower. And that's something where we'll reach out and we'll say, hey, we notice you are low on charge. The nearest charger is in this location. We can help you get there. Or there's a fault with the charger that they're using because they went and plugged into something that doesn't have power, or they're trying to charge at EVgo without the appropriate adapter. We provide them a little bit of guidance on that.
Do you have adapters in all of your cars for that situation?
We only provide the J1772, and that's typically because of the airport bookings. But outside of that, we recommend Tesla superchargers, and we provide the most convenient one to where they do their pickups. We provide that address, and then there's some other automated messages that come through at booking that explain how to charge, that give them that disclaimer about excessive speeding, which
Yeah.
there was a recent post about that. Fortunately, that vehicle came back and it was okay. It was wiped down with dash wipes, which is fairly annoying when you're cleaning it, but overall in good condition.
So is it the Tesla app that is pushing these alerts? Is it somehow synchronized to Turo, or is it just this could happen if I have my kids in my car, it could send me those same alerts through Tesla. How are you getting those?
Yeah, so there's a few things as a host that you want to have. The Tesla app obviously is something that we share with all of our guests. Some of them elect not to use it, which that's typically a red flag if they elect to not use the Tesla app. And we dig into that a little bit further. But we provide the Tesla app, the other apps that, and I'm not endorsing anybody here, but we use Standard Fleet. The Standard Fleet app, which they have a partnership with Turo, I believe. They provide supercharging invoices at ease. They allow you to set up various modes that are a little bit more restrictive than the Tesla speed limit mode, etc. And then I use the Tessie app. The Tessie app is the one that I will never end that subscription unless there's some other app that can do the same thing. But you can see the history of that vehicle for 30 days, 60 days. You can set up the alerts for when it leaves a geofence. You can set up alerts for speed. Highly recommend that. So those are
I
really
wish they
the three apps.
I wish they'd branch out and cover some of the other vehicles, but that's the advantage of Tesla is they have millions of vehicles. These third party, whether it's apps or accessories, you can find so much for Tesla that some of us other EV owners, we don't get the benefits of that stuff because there's just not the volume to create an app that does that kind of stuff. And a lot of the accessories that you'll see through like Teslarati and all these others that Tessie, man, I've been hearing about that forever. And I'd love for them to get into the something that hooks up into the OBT2 dongle or whatever. I don't know how they would do it, but the stuff that I've seen that you guys can pull out of that is remarkable. You were talking about the app. So if I've already got the app, I'm kind of curious a couple of things. What percentage do you think already have an app versus you have them download it versus have the car key? I'm assuming they're just using the car key if not. And then how does it work for their charging? So if I've got a Tesla app and maybe I've got free supercharger miles, can you just transfer it to me and I can use all my stuff like normal? Does it always have to be charged through you and you charge back? How does that work in terms of the cost of the supercharger?
Yeah, so I would say roughly 90% of the guests that we have do not have the Tesla app. So we instruct them in the initial messages to download the app and create an account. We inform them that we're going to send them a link. So how it would work, if you booked one of our vehicles, you would get all those automated messages. Let's say you booked it for an hour from right now. We would immediately send you a link to the Tesla app. When you select that link, it's going to open your app if you already have an account. It's going to show you, it's going to say success vehicle activated or something, vehicle added, something like that. And then you immediately have access. When you get to the car, you can set up your phone as a key. That's another thing we encourage. And it also provides a dummy check for us because we can see that, for example, Ethan's iPhone has been set up as a key. So if something, which we've had some funny names pop up, but typically we just try to pair that to who the actual guest is. And then we also provide the key card. So we make it clear that they have the key card, but we recommend using the Tesla app. It's just provides a greater experience, in my opinion. Turo also has a feature called Turo Go, which allows you to use the Turo app to unlock the cars. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of issues with that as of late, where it won't connect. It requires you to sign into your Tesla app and then use the Turo app. So sometimes there's some confusion there, but we always recommend Tesla app, get that downloaded, and then set up your phone as a key. As far as charging, if you were to use one of our vehicles, it's only going to use any free supercharging miles that's on our primary account. So you wouldn't be able to transfer any of that over and use that during the rental. But how Turo works is it will charge us at the end of the trip. We can send invoices for reimbursement. They have automated that feature as of late, so makes it very simple. But it seems like it's only for one primary account. We have Teslas on 3 or 4 different accounts that we have in our fleet. So it's really only working on my one account for like 3 vehicles. So that's where Standard Fleet comes in. and I can go and manually get the invoices from there and upload them to Turo.
Yeah, and I love that you can help people along the way because as I've traveled around, I always I do with Hertz a lot because they have at least some decent selections of EVs, even though, like you said, they're all base model. But they're of no help. I mean, I know more obviously, I guess that's obvious in some respects, it's understandable, but often they don't know a thing about these EVs, anything about them. And the ability for you not just to know more, but to guide somebody along who's trying to learn. I'm surprised to hear 90% are getting into the
Roughly.
Tesla for the first. Yeah, that's crazy. That's pretty awesome. Josh, I'm hogging this all because I'm just nerding out on it. What do
you're
you
good.
got? So I can. I'll
Yeah,
just,
I mean, I think that the customer service side of things is a huge piece because I mean, I went up on a business trip to Toronto and I landed in Buffalo, New York because we had to drive across the border. Long story. Anyways, got into a Tesla and I don't have much experience with Tesla, and this is the first time I had taken one on a distance road trip. So I was trying to figure out how to activate the cruise control, and Hertz doesn't know. I mean, Hertz barely knew their head from their butt. But I was sitting there trying to get the settings and functions, and a Tesla person would know it like the back of their hand. It's really easy, but I mean, there's two switches and a big screen. You're trying to figure out while you're driving how to do these things. And I'm going into Canada, and it was a unique thing that I didn't have much customer support for. So having that functionality of the localized support system definitely is something I think is a huge value add to somebody renting an EV, especially a Tesla. My F-150 Lightning is very much truck on the inside, so a regular truck driver should be able to get in and know, like, there's the air conditioning button. But Tesla has such a simplified feel that having somebody that is able to help you answer some of those questions would be a huge value to a rookie that wouldn't know much about the Tesla systems.
I think activating Blue Cruise would be something that would be a little bit difficult for a first time
Yeah,
F-150 Lightning
yeah.
owner. But outside
I
of
had
that,
to
I agree with what you're saying.
I had to look it up. I had to go to Google and watch a YouTube video because I was like, where is because on the Lightning, your Blue Cruise or whatever, it's just a button on the steering wheel, super easy, like cruise control. But I think the one that I was in, if I remember, and I also believe this might be different for different models. Ethan, you can tell me. I think the one I was in, I had to like pull the stock like 3 times, and that activated it. But like some don't even have stocks, and I think there's a different method for different cars. Like the X might
Yeah.
be different than what I was in with the 3.
That's
Yeah,
what it
so
is. I mean, for
it
my
depends.
Lightning, it's a button, and you have to have the lane centering to get the Blue Cruise to activate. Blah blah blah. But in a
It's three
Tesla,
buttons.
yeah. In Tesla, though, you have to know the amount of clicks, and there's no instruction manual anywhere on how
I
to do it.
I guess I should make it known here that my daily driver is an F-150 Lightning.
So you
Oh, it
know.
is not. I didn't know that was your daily driver.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I
Welcome
knew
to
you
the
had
Lightning
one, but
Club.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I've had it since November of 22.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Shout out Ford.
27,000 miles on it, I think, something like that. But to go back to what you were talking about with autopilot, there are different ways of activating it depending on which model you have. Like you were saying, the new yokes, I think it's on the actual yoke itself, whether it's the Cybertruck, the X, or the S. And then the Model 3, you can go in your settings and you can adjust if you want a single pull or a double pull to engage, meaning down twice on the right gear stalk. But what's great, and I know the Lightning does this, the Tesla also does, is it will recommend that you enable that mode if you're on a road that can use it. So I hop on pretty much any interstate around me in Virginia, and Blue Cruise will pop up. It'll say, "Do you want to use it?" Push one button. There you go. Same thing with Tesla. Do you want to do your drive in full self an FSD beta? Sure. Or FSD supervised? Sure. And then you enable it. So we don't have FSD on any of our cars except for the Cybertruck and my original Model 3, and I could talk about why that is the case if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's interesting that you only have FSD on the vehicle that can't use FSD.
Yeah, well, we have it on one Model 3, but we just don't find the value in having full self driving when the majority of our guests this is the first experience they're having with a Tesla. So to expect them to hop into this vehicle and then use what some would argue is the most advanced autonomous driving software out there, or ADAS, whatever, however you want to call it, supervised beta, it just doesn't make sense. So that extra cost brings up your cost of ownership each month, and then that affects your margins overall. So we just decided no full self driving unless it's mandatory, like on the Cybertruck, you had to get it. So
What I
Yeah,
found out with the
and it
vehicle I had was it had cruise control. I don't know the exact terminology, but it did not have full self driving. It was I turned on the
yeah,
button where I thought it was beta, but it never activated. It was just cruise control.
right. There's really three different tiers: autopilot, enhanced autopilot, and then the full self driving. And that typically has to be enabled. If you're a new account that's getting to that vehicle for the first time, you have to go in the settings and enable it to get it to work. And then if you strike out or you do something, you're looking away, it'll kick you out, and then you have to go park the car to try to use it again.
Yeah.
Now that would be interesting too. As a host, I think you'd have to be careful too, because if you had people with FSD and they start getting strikes against you, I know it makes you pull over and restart, but it also accumulates, right? And that could end up getting even worse. And it's not you driving it. There's a lot of reasons I guess FSD doesn't make a lot of sense, especially if you got so many new timers. It can be tough. I've got a district manager working with me with my 9 to 5, who I've been trying to slowly, as they travel, convince to get EVs, and they've been across the spectrum of Polestar and the Volkswagen and Kias and the Teslas, and it was interesting because I thought the Tesla would be the best experience, so I was really excited when he got a Tesla. And then he goes, I was like, super easy. Just go to any supercharger, plug it in, and it's a no brainer. It'll work. And then he had the rare, unfortunate, here it is, the Hertz experience, where he goes to plug it in and it doesn't charge. And he's messaging me, and we're on like FaceTime. I'm trying to walk him through checking some different things, and for the life of me, why is this not working? And I end up like screen capturing on my phone what he was showing me, posting it to X, to just the Tesla folks, and being like, guys, what are we doing wrong here? Like, this should be a no-brainer, right? What am I missing? And then it turns out that Hertz didn't set up a payment method. So there was no payment method set up. You go to plug it in, it wouldn't work. He was like stranded. And just another reason why some of this stuff, when it's too advanced for a new person, is just going to make the experience worse. And then even worse when you don't have that person, like in your circumstance, that can help them understand it. There's so many reasons that I love what you're describing. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that if you do choose to use Turo anywhere that you travel, you look at who you're booking from. You want to find hosts that have that all-star or power host status, and look at the number of trips and read their most recent reviews. That's one thing I'm most proud of, are our reviews on my page, because it shows that we actually care about our customers, and we do the right thing for them, and it's reflected in those reviews. So another thing that I meant to bring up earlier when you were talking about booking through Hertz and not really knowing what to do, Tesla puts out a videos that they tend to update with the new when they update a Model 3, and they're called Essentials videos. We include that link in the initial message that people get when they book our vehicle, and it walks
So
you through
smart.
the basics. So it's
Yeah.
literally called Essentials. So if people were provided that, which I think Hertz does do a little bit of that, they're just probably not as adamant and not as on top of their guest like we are. We make sure that we provide them as much information as possible, as close to their trip as possible, so that all their questions can be answered. Still, you'll get the occasional person that calls you, and then you walk them through all the different things, and you're like, "Why didn't you just watch the video?"
Yeah.
But if I were to send that call to voicemail or something like that, I think we're doing them a disservice, and it will reflect poorly upon Turo and on us as a host. So
Is it fair to say it's like Airbnb for vehicles, or is that a fair comparison, or not as much?
I that's the exact way that I describe it. Airbnb
Yeah.
for vehicles, because you're dealing with an owner, typically, not some sort of big business, a Marriott or a Hilton or something, or a Hertz or Enterprise.
And like with an Airbnb, do you have like a potential cleanup fee, like if things are left a mess, and then um, yeah, how's that work?
Yeah, there's a cleaning violation that can be charged. There's a smoking violation that can be charged, and then there are late fees and damaged claims. The cleaning violation, you have to meet specific criteria in order for that to work, or in order for that to get approved. And we haven't really seen any cleaning violations approved, with the exception of the Model X that required additional detailing because of some craziness that went down about a year ago, which I can talk about that story if you'd like.
Yeah,
Um,
tell us your best stories that you're allowed to share without getting yourself in any trouble or revealing names or whatever, you
yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah. I won't reveal any names, but there are two real stories that stand out. One of them, I don't know how much I should go into specifics because there's an ongoing case involving what happened there, but I can give you some information about it. So one of our Model Ys, which it's a 2020 long range, you may have seen the video at a supercharger. But basically, the SWAT team rolled up, flashbanged the driver. It hit off the top of the vehicle, and they arrested him. So if you haven't seen that video, I deleted it because I was asked to delete it, but a lot of people stole it and posted it on Instagram and other places. So we'll start with that. So if you're listening to this, pause and go find that video, look up Tesla flashbang, and then come back to this. So
Josh, if you can find that video and link it, that would be
I might put
awesome.
it in the
yeah,
the description below. So yeah, definitely.
yeah.
This
So
this is the bumper part here, the flashbang part. Now, was this somebody that had got flashbang because they were after him anyway, or they did something in your Model Y that caused them to get chased and flashbanged?
yeah, so let me get to how this all unraveled. So we had a one of our 2023 Model 3s was booked for a few days. This was, I think, February of 2023. So a little bit of time ago. That Model 3 was booked, went on its trip. At the end of the trip, which nothing had really happened, at the end of the trip, the guest wanted to continue their trip, but that car had another booking with a different guest. So they did a swap into another vehicle. At booking, I called Turo because they didn't have any trips. They didn't, I think there was a discrepancy. Some of this is a little bit blurry, but I think there was a discrepancy, basically red flags when they booked. No trips. I think they were picking up at midnight, some things that didn't make sense. So I called Turo and I said, hey, just letting you know, looks like some red flags here. I don't know what's going on, but if you could look into this, please do. So I make that phone call. That's all recorded and it's kept in their records. So a about 4 day trip, I think. So that trip ends, and at midnight when they bring the vehicle back, they pick up another vehicle. So they go from a 2023 red Model 3 rear-wheel drive to a 2022 gray or midnight silver metallic long range Model Y. And since it's at midnight, we're not there to pick it. We're not there to see the transfer of the vehicle. So the red one comes back, they take the Y, good to go. Well, the next day when we go to start, closing out of the trip for the Model 3, it had been smoked in. Great. Okay, I call Turo. I say, hey, this guest smoked in the vehicle. They, they're in another one of our cars. I guess they're probably going to smoke in that. Do we just let them continue the trip? Do I ask them to bring the vehicle back? I don't know. They didn't really provide much guidance, but basically said, they booked the vehicle, they'll bring it back at the end of their trip. You can charge them another fee. Got it. We said, great. At the time when we were cleaning up the Model 3, which we didn't know what this was at the time, but we found this thin piece of film, like window tint. And we didn't know what it was, but it was like in the window, just a very small sliver. When I saw it, I had no idea what it was. I didn't think about it until a little bit later, which we'll get to it. So basically, fast forward another probably 3 days, and I play adult league hockey. So I'm at the hockey rink. It's like 10:30 p.m. My wife is at home with we have young twin boys. At the time, they were like 4 months old. They'd only been home from the hospital for like 2 months. So they're sleeping. The wife is sleeping. I get a phone call from my wife at like 10:30 saying, hey, there are two detectives at the door. Which, okay, what's going on? They want to talk to you. Okay. So they put me on the phone. They say, hey, we're calling about one of your vehicles. it was involved in a situation earlier today. We wanted to see what information you could give us. We looked you up on LinkedIn. We know you're not the guy that did this. We know your primary occupation. We know you have a Turo business as well. We know it's not you. I said, okay, fantastic. Let me let me finish up what I'm doing. I think I needed to shower or something at the rink, and then I'll get home. So I get home and I start talking to them about what happened. They told me, hey, your vehicle was involved in a shooting. The location that this happened was, it was reported by someone that saw the plates. They told us it was your vehicle. We need to know if you have any information on where the vehicle was at whatever time. Well, the Tessie app. The Tessie app is what I showed them. They said, yeah, that's exactly where the shooting happened at the exact time. I said, cool. All right. Well, there you go. I gave them that information. Then I said, all right, well, what's next? The person
And at
still
this
has the
point,
car.
they still have the car, right?
Correct.
Oh
They
my
still
God.
have the car. So at this point, they're trying to figure out what's the location of the vehicle. Here you go, officer. Here's the Tesla app. They have the app. They can see exactly where it is. They said, all right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Those two detectives ended up not being on the case the next day, but the people that were on the case called me the following morning, and they said, hey, can we get another link to the app? Because we're not the people that are handling it today. I said, sure, here's the link. Well, at this time, me and my business partner were at the airport. We were moving around. We were in like our Model S. I think we were cleaning that, and we were also keeping eyes on what was going on with the Model Y. So the night prior, it was like sitting at a Hooters, and there were a couple people. I won't get into what they look like or who they were, but a couple people that went to the vehicle. They tailed it to a home, and then the next day, they picked up following it. Well, they were following the vehicle, bunch of guys. They drop them off at the house. Well, we're watching the vehicle and we see that they put in their destination. So one thing about the Tesla app is you can put your destination and it pops up on the Tesla app. So we knew exactly where they were going, which if we knew exactly where they were going, the police knew exactly where they were going.
This is awesome.
So me and my business partner were at the airport right next to that supercharger. So what did we do? We went over. I didn't want to do it, but Aaron wanted to go over there. So he goes over, parks on the opposite side of the Wawa where the supercharger is, and watches our Model Y
Man.
roll by. And at that time, as it drove by, all of the windows were fully tinted. You couldn't see through the Tesla. And I was like, at that moment, it hit me. Oh, that was tint that I found on the Model 3. They're tinting the windows. I was like,
And
Aaron,
then removing it.
yeah, and then removing it at the end of the trip. So I was like, Aaron, we got to go because I didn't want like the detective that I was texting to walk by me and see like us, in giddy in the car, just giggling about what was about to go down. Um, so we drive away. We go to another location, and I'm waiting for a text. I get a text from the detectives that all it is we got him. And I was like, that's
My
cool.
God.
So fast forward like 2 hours, they tell me they're waiting on they have to get a form from the court to search the vehicle, even though I gave them permission, whatever. But when we get there, we talk with them. We see I see the tint is on the windows. I'm like peeling it off. They're asking me like if I tinted the windows, and I'm like, no, I didn't. This isn't my tint. These guys did this. Car reeked of weed. And then we got to the point where after some conversation, they said, well, we had asked, is there any chance we can see the video? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then any chance we could have the video? And we asked if we could post it as long as everything was blurred out so you can't see who was doing the arrest. And they were like, sure, yeah, they didn't care.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So what ended up happening is the female that booked the vehicle obviously didn't have the vehicle. I don't know her situation. I don't know if anything's ongoing with her, but federally, there's some stuff that probably went down that's not good. But what she was doing was she was like subleasing it to gang members, and these guys had the vehicle, joyriding, and they went after a rival gang member who was riding a dirt bike, and they were shooting at him from the Tesla Model Y. They ended up hitting him and sending him to the hospital. to my knowledge, he survived. But what they didn't realize was they were in the smartest vehicle that's on the road, and
Right.
all of that information is tracked. And
It definitely
we
didn't
just
help their
wanted to get,
court case.
yeah, probably
Yeah.
They
not.
go to
Yeah,
court and be like, "Hey, look, I know exactly where you were at every moment of every day, and here's a
yeah,
camera image of you doing what you were doing." And yeah,
yeah. That all still kind of ongoing. So I don't know what's happening there, but I'm trying to stay out of it because our only involvement was we were just trying to get the vehicle back, and we ended up getting the vehicle back. There
so
was
here's
some
my
damage.
question:
Go ahead.
flashbang versus Tesla. How did that end up with the vehicle?
Yeah, so they told me that the flashbang hit off of the glass, and I checked the glass on the roof. There was no damage, but there
Awesome.
was damage on the A pillar, which is, the side of the main windshield on the passenger side, and it was like a dent with a scratch, and they said it was likely from the recoil of a gun that they were
Wow.
shooting out of the window. So
So did all that damage, I guess, get put into the legal process of being fixed through that situation, or is that all on
we
you and insurance?
So yeah, we didn't get any assistance there, which was kind of unfortunate because you can't really work with someone's insurance that is in jail. So because the person that I rented it was in jail, um, as well as the person that they rented it to, um, we couldn't handle it through them. So we had a deductible of, I think at the time we were on the 90 plan, so our deductible was $2,500 for any
Wow.
damage. So we ate that $700 repair.
Gotcha. Wow.
Goodness. And now did you get your smoking fees and all that? It goes to a
Yeah,
credit card, right? So you
we
got
got
that and they got a
yeah, but I'm pretty sure they used a fraudulent card, which it seems like that has been a big issue, something that they're working through. Turo is very proactive about finding these accounts once you report it, and they've gotten better over the last couple of years. And I make sure that I emphasize, hey, these are red flags. This is not normal. You guys should look into this. And they have a team, a trust and safety team that does. They look into that, whether it's people with fraudulent accounts or people that don't return vehicles, and they have a good process. Sometimes it's too reactive, like in this situation. Potentially, if they would have looked into that guest the first time, or hey, let's end the current trip now, something like that, we could have avoided what happened. But they didn't know. I mean, their process doesn't call for any of that. They basically just wait until the trip ends, you get the vehicle back, and then they charge the person because I think that's the least intrusive, which might not be what you want as an owner, but you have to understand that's how they operate
customer
the company.
experience.
So for
So
customer, exactly.
did you get paid and get your fees or did it all get charged back because it was fraudulent card?
Yeah, we got Turo still honored everything. So we still
That's
got,
cool.
I think we got the cleaning violation, the smoking violation, um, but we just had to come out of pocket for the damage, which is okay. So that situation was probably the craziest one that has happened.
Yes, I'd
There's
imagine so.
there's
I've
one
I've seen
other.
others with blood and with all kinds
Yeah,
of
I can
like
talk about that one. That's the other one. I'll make that one a little bit quicker. So I actually posted about it, I think yesterday, because they tried to book my Cybertruck, and the person that had booked this Model X in the past, their mom was the one that was booking the Cybertruck. We called Turo. I spoke with the person that was trying to book it, the son, and I said, absolutely not. We're not taking this risk. But I don't think these photos are up either because they were asked to be taken down, which I complied. But this was uh, June, late June of last year. A guest that had booked from us multiple times had our Model X plaid, and we noticed that it was pretty low on charge. I think it was up in maybe 40 minutes from where we were. We reached out and said, hey, we recommend getting to a charger. Here's the nearest one. A few hours later, I started to get, I think it was towards the evening, low state of charge again. They were somehow finding a charger every time. Then it got pretty close to our area and the place that they picked up from, and it was very low, almost to the point where it was dead. And I said, hey, like I got to go to bed, man. You got to figure this out. If if that vehicle can't move because it's out of charge, you need to get it towed. So fast forward to the next morning, I get a call. And let me preface this: the only reason that I was like that with this guy was because he knew what he was doing. He knows how to charge the vehicles. He's had Teslas many times. He was kind of pushing it and trying to get it, as low as he could. Probably not intentionally, but just out of negligence. So
watching too many out of spec videos. That's what's going on.
Yeah, I blame Kyle.
Kyle.
Yeah. So the next
Way to
day,
go, Kyle.
Yeah, I get a call from a police officer saying, "Hey, we found your vehicle." And I was like, "Oh, great. What happened?" So it's actually my business partner's car. They contacted me, I'm pretty sure. We go to the vehicle and it's parked outside of an elementary school / rec center. And as we approach the car, there's police around. And we notice the passenger side window is pushed in. And then inside on our white interior, there's blood that like tracks throughout the whole car. And then on the exterior, there's like some sticky substance, and you see on the ground, like I think it was a bottle of water and like a couple Pepsi cans that had been shattered. That's what that sticky substance was. So we're like, crap, what happened here? The vehicle died. He went to try to plug it in to what happened to be a water spigot, not an outlet, which obviously that's not going to give you any power. And then because it killed the 12 volt, it couldn't get back in the vehicle. So what that person said happened was they needed medication from the car, and that is why they ended up busting that window. But initially, when the person arrived at the scene, because we hadn't heard from them, we had heard from the police, we reached out, we're like, hey, what's going on? Nothing was going through. Messages were going green. Their phone was clearly dead. They say, hey, sorry, my phone died. And then they pull up and they walk up to the situation. There's police there. There's me and my business partner. And they're like, oh, what happened? Like acting like they have no idea the situation. And we look at him, and at this point, we had already gone into the school. We looked at the footage. Oh, that's the guy that rented our car. He lost his mind, did something. You see him throwing Pepsi cans at the window, trying to bust in. Not going to work. Eventually, walks away. Happened to live nearby. Walks away, comes back with pliers or something, and smashes the window. Crawls in, cuts his leg, cuts his hand. Blood's everywhere, to retrieve what he says was diabetes medication. At some point that night, too, a tow truck showed up. They couldn't figure out how to jump it. It was a mess. He eventually said, okay, yeah, you're right. It was me. I'm so sorry. And excuse me.
And you're still renting to this guy today, it sounds like. He's a regular customer? Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
No. He didn't rent from us again after that. He rented multiple times, didn't rent from us again.
Got it.
He tried to, is what you're saying. He tried to.
Yeah, and I said, I know this name.
Yeah.
The name popped up. I went and looked up like in my email, couldn't find anything. Checked my text, and it's like, you received a Cash App from this name. And I was like, that's the person.
What happened? That's crazy. What happened? You know what happened? Medication. Sure, it was medication.
He literally acted like he had no idea what happened. And
people are awful.
Me and Aaron, we looked at each other and we're like, and Aaron looks at him. He's like, dude, we have you on video. We know this was you. Why? Well,
this is great.
Turns out that he ended up paying for all the damages because there was blood in the vehicle. It couldn't be repaired until it went to some hazmat and got some hazmat treatment because there was blood. Paid for the window, paid for, they had to, the sensors on the front of the car, the ultrasonic sensors, they thought that was the tow hook port. So they were like, I don't know, prying them out. So they were missing. There were a few of them missing. They eventually got the tow hook, but couldn't figure out how to connect it to power it, to pop the front, to recharge the 12 volt.
They thought it was that circle that you pop out for doing the tow thing. Is that what they thought it was? And they popped out your sensors?
That's where you get the wires normally to pop the frunk in an emergency. But yes, they thought the USS, the ultrasonic sensors, were the actual tow hook. So those were popped
Amazing.
out. They ended up paying for all that, and they paid us for lost revenue. And we didn't go through with anything with the police.
Well, that worked out. I mean, at least they had money and coverage and took responsibility ultimately.
Took responsibility, but it wasn't a risk that I was willing to take this time. I told him, there's no way I'm putting you in a Cybertruck or your mom or your parent in a Cybertruck. Not happening.
Wow.
So as we wrap up, I'm assuming that these great stories are just great. And that's exactly why I was like, God, I got to get him on to talk about this. I'm assuming, though, while these are the great fun stories to tell, that overwhelmingly they're good stories, and that so for every of these interesting situations that where you got to get insurance and fees involved, there's 9, 10, 20 others that are just great, unremarkable, wonderful experiences, and in the aggregate it all works out. Would you say that that's the case? And then tell us where you're at and where people can find you on Turo if they want to rent one.
Yeah, so I would say less than 5% of our trips have issues. There are certain times where we'll go through a string of trips that you have smoking violation after smoking violation. We understand the process of fixing the vehicle, getting it back to the quality that it needs to be in, and charging the guest for that. But the majority of our trips, the ones that wouldn't be interesting, they don't get posted on Twitter or on X. So, but if you're in the Norfolk, Virginia area, you fly into the area to go to the Outer Banks or something like that, you can find us on Turo. If you find a Tesla on there, it's probably mine. And then, on Twitter or on X, you can find me on there. E Zabroni.
And I will add that right here.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I appreciate the insight. I mean, as most guests, I feel like we could sit here and have a 4-hour conversation, but I don't think our listeners want to listen to us for 4 hours. Maybe they do, but that's why we have multiple episodes. So we will have you back on sometime soon to have more dialogue around the Turo experience and kind of what you do in the EV space and for the EV space, because it's, everybody has a different angle of how, they have a plug into the EV space. And yours is a very interesting one because, we've had people that live off grid with their F-150 Lightning. We have people that are, helping, it's in a way helping introduce people to EVs through a system like Turo, but also to provide a rental service outside of failing Hertz EVs for somebody to be able to go to a city like Norfolk and actually have, a viable option there. So very, very cool, unique conversation. Thank you for joining us. So,
yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, that's all for this week. Tune in next week for more EV news and updates.
See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Turn Down for What. Tune in next week for more EV news and updates. Make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on to be notified when we post more episodes like this one. See you then.